Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Sakey speaking. Well, coming up to elections, let's start talking about policies. I've got here in front of me the freshwater policy for the Maori Party, which is dated August 2021. It states that successive governments have failed to acknowledge the rights and the interests of whānau, hapu and iwi over fresh water. So the Maori Party stated they prioritise ensuring that rangatira and kaitiaki rights and interests of tangata whenua are implemented across freshwater management and allocation to overturn the Crown's position that everyone owns the water and will adopt a position that acknowledges customary decision-making rights and interests in freshwater. So the intrinsic whakapapa of freshwater supporting iwi to negotiate whakapapa rights to be acknowledged in the law through legislations. So negotiations restarted with the government iwi to develop a policy framework on how iwi rights and interests are implemented in freshwater management and allocation. So this is a substantial increase in funding to Te Mana o Te Wai Fund to support the effort of whānau hapu iwi to protect, restore catchments and aquifers, a freshwater arrangement, a public-private project between the government and iwi. So developing a commercial user pays policy to ensure fair allocation and support for tangata whenua-led catchment restoration. So we're looking at the Resource Management Act to ensure that iwi rights and interests in water are addressed in the Resource Management Act processes, including decisions in water takes and discharges, to honour the rangatira and kaitiaki rights and interests of mana whenua over fresh water. And under British common law, naturally flowing fresh water is not owned by anyone, but is treated as for the public good of all. This is a legal position in New Zealand, and it's unresolved through the Treaty Maori Rights in Fresh Water. So Nick Smith, the Minister for the Government Freshwater Policy at the time, referred to the Maori Party's iwi interests as to government freshwater policies at an Auckland public meeting, saying there would be an obligation on local councils to consult with the iwi about the use of water and their special interests in it. So iwi special interests in water. He reminded the audience that the government had repeatedly said that nobody owns the water. So the position is supported by a Crown obligation, so that's government obligation, to the 1835 Declaration of Independence, which actually was nulled by the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840. So there would be an obligation on local councils to consult with iwi about the use of water in which they have a special interest. The position is supported by the Crown, as I say, as to their obligations of 1835. Well, I didn't know they had obligations to 1835 Declaration. The Waitangi Tribunal said the Crown should be working with hapu and iwi. The Crown should be negotiating with iwi directly, not just engaging in self-appointed Maori representative. And the government's recently proposed NPS is a good step towards embedding the Te Mana o Te Wai principles and obligations the Maori Party set. These are all guiding activities embedded in the RMA, the Resource Management Act. So the Maori Party supports a policy of user pays for commercial consents to freshwater as part of their new regime. and they spoke about revenue raised from water charges should go to mana whenua, the interest and specific charges, how they're distributed to mana whenua should be determined through tangata whenua and the government. The Maori Party would push for any new water allocation system to conform with Te Mana o Te Wai, the rights and obligations of iwi, their own mana as to waterways. This is based on perpetual use rights, first takes and discharges provided are by iwi hapu. They're talking about customary rights here, equitable share of the quantum of water rights in their area, each tribe in their area, iwi elite in their area. The Maori Party would acknowledge the intrinsic whakapapa and ecological rights of freshwater, support hapu iwi to negotiate for the whakapapa rights of their oa and rota to be acknowledged in law. So iwi of Whanganui have led the way internationally in terms of recognising whakapapa of waterways in law, and they refer again to the Havelock North concerns, although there have been many critical debates around that as to the evidence. So in the last government, the Maori Party was able to win a landmark Te Mana o Te Wai policy framework, which included a fund for mana whenua-led restoration projects. So the Waitangi Tribunal found that the hapu and iwi Maori have rights and interests in freshwater, Article 2 of Te Riti Te o Waitangi. But I haven't seen that. The tribunal report also noted the failure of the Crown to the treaty compliancy. National said no one owns water, while Labour said that everyone owns water. The Maori Party say they own water. Surely water is our God-given right. That's what I was to understand. So no one should own the water. What do you think? Here is the Maori Party freshwater policy from 2021. Now you know what they are up to this election. Wake up, New Zealand.